Word Balloon is brought to you by the League of Word Balloon Listeners.
Every part of comics and artwork is a form of communication with other people. It's not just a, here, let me direct my thoughts at you as a dictation of concept, but it's hoping to convince you of how cool you think a visual could be or a story could be. And you're trying to communicate ideas, and in one part storytelling and greater part just graphic impact. You're hoping to relate a sense of energy, urgency, and enthusiasm to people. That there's a lightning of spirit that comes out of superheroes that has always worked for me. That it isn't really about the practicality of what they might do. It's not the practicality about grown men punching each other in costumes. It really isn't about that. It's a visual metaphor. And that metaphor could be for a lot of things, but it's mostly just about the energy and enthusiasm that can be found in the fun of life.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. It's time for Word Balloon. Look at her waving already. All excited to be here. See, that's why I'm happy to talk to you, Tini. Tini Howard, everybody. Good to see you,
everyone.
Tini.
Hi, John. Great to see you.
Oh, man. How's the year been, bud? I know as we were just talking off the air, we've both been vaxxed, so we're coming out of it, thank God. But, yeah, how's your mental health through all this shit?
You know, good. But I'm really grateful because part of why my mental health, stayed stuck together was because, I stayed working. And a lot of people didn't this year. A lot of people, it was a hard year for the industry and a lot of people, but also a great year for the industry in a lot of ways. I know a lot of people said that they sold a ton of books this year because everyone was inside. Everyone wanted to read. But definitely what kept me sane was like loving my work right now and having that. And if nothing, it's like, if nothing else, I can go hang out with the X-Men, right? Like that's
absolutely
so bad.
I hear you, buddy. Absolutely. Well, congratulations on the debut last week. I got to bring up the cover. It's X-Corp. And God, right off the bat, I must say, and I mean this in a positive way, and I believe this person as well. First of all, Alejandro says hello, and good to see you, Alejandro. Thank you. And Stephen Commander also. Thank you, Stephen. Good to see you. And S. Jam Rosick points out that the X-Corp cover reminds him of the Wildcats 3.0 covers from, God, has it been 20 years? I remember talking to Joe Casey about this series a long time ago, and I wonder if it was an influence on what you guys are doing.
I want to say it was. Like at some point, someone brought up like that inspiration point. It might have been David working on the covers. Someone kind of brought up that vibe, but I love them. The covers I'm a huge fan. So, like a lot of people, one of the first books that, really got me, subscribing and loving comics and putting it on my pull list was, the Matt Fraction Hawkeye series, which, I had picked up not because I was a huge fan of Hawkeye, but because I'd been such a huge fan of Matt Fraction's work on Invincible Iron Man that I was like going to follow him anywhere. And that Hawkeye book with those David Aja covers, I was like, okay, like I'm in. And since then, I mean, like to me, he's always been an artist who it's like, I'll buy anything with his work on the cover. So having him do the covers for a book I'm writing is like a huge honor. Because it's a book great. I would pick up. And that's always the best feeling, right? When you should always want to buy what you're selling, right? Like,
sure.
If you wouldn't buy what you're selling, how do you expect anyone else to buy it, right? So,
well, you've had amazing fortune as far as the artists that you've been paired with and the ones that you've on your own, I guess, collaborated with as well over the years. I do like this idea of X-Corp, and I'm glad it's being revisited, and that is the corporate world from the superhero and then supervillain perspective. So tell me about the genesis for X-Corp.
Sure. Well, okay. So I've always been a fan of like that part of the Marvel universe. Like I mentioned, loving, Invincible Iron Man. I love, Dark Avengers and like Norman Osborn. I loved all new X Factor with the Serval Industries. And I loved the X Corporation from New X-Men. It's something I've always thought is really fun. I've always been a fan. Like I love shows like Succession. I've always loved shows like, things like, Boardwalk Empire and things that have that that sort of power play.
Sure.
I love power play stories. I love those kind of character based, who's cheating who kind of stories. So I wanted to tell one, and initially, way back, I had kind of proposed, pre Dawn of X, when we were still figuring out what books we were going to do and why. Along with this mutant magic Excalibur book that I had pitched, I also pitched or had talked about how I would love to do something that was kind of like an X Factor book that, kind of fused some of the all new X Factor aspects with some of the like X Factor investigations aspects. And it never really happened, but it was something I'd kind of just like planted a flag in and been like, this is something I want to do at some point. And then we kind of had to figure out like a version of what we wanted, right? Like it obviously didn't become an X Factor book because Leah Williams pitched her incredible X Factor take. And that, was our X Factor book. But we kind of had it in the background. And at one point I was like, well, what if it's called X-Corp and it's about the X Corporation and it's a revival of the X Corporation. And it starts with, it's, basically the building of like their ostensibly it's mentioned in House of X and Powers of 10 that, Charles has this portfolio and with all that manages the pharmaceutical drugs, and part of it was X Corporation. It's all built on. So my idea was, okay, well, X Corporation, we make a story called X-Corp, and it's the story of that happening, of that group becoming something more than just Charles's portfolio and becoming their own entity within Krakoa. And like at one point, the concept existed within our minds in Krakoa as we're building it and talking about it, but I hadn't gotten the story for the book right yet, which is kind of how Empire X-Men happened, which was our tie into the Empire event. And the way we decided to tell that story was in a really, really collaborative way. And so when the ball got passed to me and I got to introduce some characters, I said, well, I'm going to soft launch X-Corp. Like, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to, I have some pages to do some Krakoan storytelling. I'm going to do what we always try to do in the X office, which is build, add more, make it bigger, and richer and additive to Krakoa itself. So we did. I kind of built it in the background of that story, and then it existed. And then so I felt less rushed and I could kind of develop it. And the idea that these characters were already brought together by this made it easier. I had kind of set myself up there, which was nice. And I highly recommend, if you're someone that story tells, if you're a comic writer or anything like that, like, leave yourself breadcrumbs. You'll always be happy you did. Yeah. And finally we settled on the story that, what kind of kept coming back to me was this, what I've talked about as this red Oni, blue Oni take of like that both Monet and Angel are people who have another side to them and also who have corporate experience and like are really, I love putting them together. And to me, that's part of what this business is about, is taking characters that people love and figuring out what their relationship is. And, we all love stuff like that, right? Like some of the, those kind of opposites attract, Wolverine and Jubilee or like, Cable and Deadpool. Like we love those kinds of stories. And so for me, Monet and Angel are just like the latest in a long tradition of what is satisfying to me and what I hope is satisfying to the readers. Tradition of forming a great team up between those characters that, is part of both their stories now.
No, that sounds great. And honestly, I love this direction for Angel. And I will confess, I haven't been following Monet's stories. So tell me about Monet's background.
Oh, wow. So she's a wild one. She is from the era of Gen X, of that book. She was a part of that class. And she's one of those characters that has a really weird backstory because the publisher intent for, like, the original intent for her is kind of different from what happened, right? So, like, she was supposed to be later revealed to be two little mutants pretending to be one mutant.
Wow.
But the problem was that everyone fell in love with the character, and they were like, well, you can't do that. Like, you can't take her away now. Like, I know that was the point, but she's the best character in the book. It's also, I mean, it's a book with Jubilee, so that's hard for me to say because, you know, I love Jubilee too. But
cool, yeah,
she's a great character. So
oh yeah.
Her deal has been that she comes from a family of a bunch of mutants. Some of them are evil. Some of them, her older brother is like an evil vampire named Emplate. But her thing is that she the best way to describe her is like, she's kind of like Veronica, if Veronica Lodge were Superman. Like, she's beautiful and rich, and her you know, daddy is an ambassador and all that, but she has like Superman powers, like she can fly and has super strength and all that. And then she also has another part of her which has been a lot of different things over the years, but think of it like just an alter ego, you know, for now, called Penance, who is like a red armored violent lobster woman. Yeah, and
Okay.
she also has the corporate background. She comes from a very wealthy family. She also in New X-Men is part of the X Corporation. She is, you know, an X Factor member, and so she's, you know, worked in that capacity a lot. And she's also just one of my favorite mutants. I think she's a really, really cool character. I also just really, really love the chance to explore both sides of both of those characters, like getting to explore Monet's relationship with Penance, but also getting to explore Angel's relationship with Archangel, because they are not dissimilar.
Okay, sure. Now, you know, and for again, man, I'm telling you, I don't follow the X-Men like I should. I know everything you guys are doing has been so well received, and I really do think it's terrific what you guys are doing. Speedball used to be a Penance years ago, right?
Oh yeah, I don't.
No relation, just using the name in a different way.
Yeah, I remember because like I after, you know, Civil War, and he had a
Right.
suit of whatever to, like, because he felt bad about killing all those kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's like totally
yeah,
different. Like, Penance's is like a weird like trauma response thing where she like locked people out with it, like, and it's definitely one of those characters. I actually was just on another podcast that a friend does called Cerebrocast, which is a great X-Men podcast.
Okay.
And we just did an episode all about Monet, and like I talked for like an hour and a half, and then like someone else talked for like an hour. It ended up being like 4 hours because there's just so much of the character. And I think, you know, in every episode, the host Connor does what's called a character file, where he'll be like, okay, like, here's the part where I just tell you the backstory of this character. And I think the Monet one is like 45 minutes long.
Okay, that's good to know.
that's the best way I can explain Monet, is to tell you that my dive research buddy tried to break it down as best he could, and it was 45 minutes long.
Cool. That's awesome. Hey, all right. And Christopher wants you to know that he really loved the first issue, as I did as well.
That's wonderful. Thank you, guys.
More. So that's excellent. And another hello from Mars Comics. Good to see you, Mars. Thank you.
Hey there.
No, I think this is an interesting group, and also I like the idea that too, that again, this is a different way that the mutants are kind of hitting the Marvel universe from a financial and business standpoint. And I mean, I would assume, is this going to be an ongoing, or is this a limited series?
I mean, it's everything's
right. Subject
we all look at everything, right? So we look at things like sales, we look at things like the position of the story. You know, we look at everything. So the best thing I can say is we'll do as much as we can, you know, or at least we'll do it until, you know, we do as much story as we've got too, right? Like, so part of it is planning, like, you know, where we end it. But I mean, it's one of the great things about working in this era is that you feel like you can have things that run in the background. You feel like if you want to write, you know, and set up a team or set up a book, you can, and then they exist. And those characters and those experiences are still very present. And because of the storytelling function of the Krakoan Gates, like, you know, you can still get that Westchester feel. But if you want to get 10 disparate people together to, you know, eat cereal or play baseball or whatever, you can.
Sure. Oh, that's hilarious. First of all, let's see here.
3
3
days of
days
the
of the
Monet.
Monet Sabrio cast, and I still have 45 minutes to go. That's fantastic.
Yeah,
There you go.
I haven't gotten through. I haven't gotten to like listen to the whole thing yet. I've gotten to skip around a little, but that's what I hear is a couple people are like, "Yeah, I'm breaking it down." One person was like, "I listened to it twice." I was like, "Man, X-Men fans, y'all."
Hey, man, seriously, and that's why I do love when I do talk to ex-creators that I appreciate this world. I keep saying, all right, sit down and really crack the nut. I got to do it before I talk to John again, Hickman. And I love what, honestly, I know he's kind of the ex-master right now. And how involved was he in terms of, discussing what you're doing with X-Corp?
Oh, well, I mean, John is, everyone in the room, we're all kind of aware of what each other's doing. It's really
Sure.
social. We're always talking. We're always, we're on Zoom every couple of weeks and just chatting and bouncing everything off. But like, John is someone who like I've gotten to work with personally because of Ten of Swords and stuff. And like,
Yeah.
he's just like a mentor to me. So I just call him
Oh,
on the
that's
phone
great.
and say, hey, like, can I bounce this off of you? And he's really good about being like, like listening to me and being like, okay, what you need is, but it's great. We're both big Monet fans. So, we always, we have fun like bouncing those ideas off. He was really into it because he likes, like we're both huge Succession fans and like Jordan White too. And like Annalise, our editor, we're like,
I love
all of
Jordan.
us are, yeah, we're all big fans of Succession and like Silicon Valley and stuff like that. So,
Sure.
We have all really like, and we've gone through a lot of iterations. Like I never I never want people to think that like everything we come up with, is birth fully formed. Like X-Corp was a book that took a lot of figuring out to be like, what's the Marvel version of this? Like we don't get to be Succession and hire a bunch of actors to do this. Like,
yeah.
It's got to look like good on a comic page. It's got to be interesting and fun. So we went through a lot of iterations of figuring it out. So, I mean, not just Jonathan, but everyone in the room is like a big part of everything in that, like, it's such a good room in the sense where it's like, we're good at just being like, hey, it's 2 a.m. and no one else is awake, but I have this weird idea and I'm going to go to bed. I'm going to like leave it here in the Slack and go to bed. And when I wake up, I want to see your whole ideas, and you go to sleep and you check again. And like, the Brits have woken up and commented, and then like the East Coasters will wake up and comment, and then like me on the West Coast, I wake up and I'm like, all right, let's see what everyone had to say about whatever crazy idea I dropped on them before I went to bed last night. It's wonderful. Yeah. Like we're all super big fans of each other's stuff, and super involved,
Yeah, no, I get it, and really, I'm so glad that the viewers are asking questions in the direction that I wanted to go as well. Stephen Commander's got a couple comments here. One of the things I loved about X-Corp is you brought mutants in that had little interaction with the X-Men, like Sabra, and then says, will you be using any wealthy Marvel mutants like Vance Astrovic or Danielle Taylor, and that have had little or no interaction with the X-Verse?
Well, those are great questions. I can never talk about who I am or I'm not going to use,
Sure.
But I can answer your first question or talk to your first point. Thank you for that. I had a lot of fun with that. Like, again, part of the fun of the Krakoa era is the toy box feeling that like it just feels like everyone's back in play, and everyone can have a new lease on life. I got to write 12 issues of like turning Apocalypse into a sad hero so that Jonathan and I could write an event, spoilers for Ten of Swords. I guess I won't spoil it, but like, so we could write an event about Apocalypse, more or less.
Yeah.
Like that, that feeling of getting to find characters, who show up in brief little spurts, like, like having, Wind Dancer direct the commercial in the very beginning of X-Corp is a direct nod to, Leah using Wind Dancer in X Factor.
Okay.
So not only do we get to like, it's fun, like, because we get to kind of twofold. One, go into the toy box of Mutants Past. I mean, you know, if you're reading Excalibur, you know, I love to, I made Saturnine into like a major figure. Again, I love to find like underappreciated characters from things I love and be like, I'm going to bring this person and modernize them and give them something to do and relevance and whatever again.
Yes.
So yeah, the ability to do that is one really, really fun part of it. And also to find people in weird roles, right? Like maybe this person would be good at this for this reason. Al Ewing is really good at that in Sword. Like if you haven't read that, their issue 3 is about Manifold, and it's absolutely brilliant look at like this person expanding on their powers and using their powers in a new way. Which is one thing we love to do. And then the other is, to bounce off of mutants that other people have set up in their books that maybe haven't gotten attention in a while, and then get them to continue to be like, oh, hey, you did this, I'll do this. Help each other out.
No, that only fleshes out the universe more. And with that idea of character, Dion was wondering, he loved your discussion with Connor last week. You spoke about your approach to narrative and character voices. What versions of Monet and Angel spoke to you that brought you into X-Corp?
That's a very good question.
Yes.
Monet's a character who I feel like for me, I wouldn't say she feels easy to write, but she feels like easy to understand. Like her voice is very clear, her perspective is very clear. And I feel like, the two people that have written the most, I guess, Monet that I've read, somewhat recently is like Peter David and Jonathan Hickman.
Okay. Makes sense.
I really like the way both of them write that character. My Twitter bio is try harder Marvel girl for a reason. Like, I think Monet is just the best psychic, and she's so fantastic in House of X. She's just one of my favorite characters. So for her, she's a character I love very much. So I feel like I've always loved her. Like I love most versions of Monet. I love original Gen X Monet. I love X Factor Monet. I love House of X Monet. I love Monet. So those are the ones that speak the most to me. But those feel like the true her to me, and that's the one that I'm touching on. For Angel, I really tried to basically okay, so it's harder than you think to find like modern Angel stories that aren't about Archangel, right?
Sure.
And I wanted to find so I ended up reading a lot of his like really early first appearances to remember like who this guy was when he was a kid. Which was kind of like why, in Empire X-Men and like a little bit, I kind of revisit that scene of them talking to Charles in X-Corp 1. It's important to me to establish that like Charles is entrusting this to Angel because Angel is one of his original 5. And because we've seen all of the others take these kind of like star turns, power ups, whatever. And Angel's always feels like so tragic. Like he feels like he gets the like Archangel isn't tragic. He's badass. He's cool. I like Archangel.
Right.
He's fine.
Sure.
Archangel's fine, but like Archangel has had so much story that it feels like we know him more than we know Angel. So I read a lot of really early Angel appearances, and I really connected with that sense of like he has been here since the beginning, and and this is what Charles trusts him with is the human part of his dream. The like they can love you, you love them. Like you're brilliant and wealthy and charming and beautiful, and you have beautiful white angel wings coming out of your back. Like even your mutation is something that makes you look like something humans would love.
Yes, hopefully, absolutely.
Yeah. So like the idea that like Angel is that part of Charles's dream was very important to me, and so I write him as this very cautious, hopeful guy who is worried that there's something in him that's less than,
Sure. And that he can't control, obviously, every now and then,
yeah. And in a world where everyone wants to be cooler and more powerful, is that maybe the better version of you? Like, are you dumb for not being that guy all the time?
Okay.
Monet seems to be peniss whenever she wants, and she kicks ass about it. Like,
I'm always happy to see Jamie Madrox. I love Multiple Man, and I loved Matt's Rosenberg's series, from a couple of years ago. I thought that was great, so I'm really glad to see him in there. And
Thank you.
yeah, absolutely. No, so obviously I mean, that was the thing. Were you able to corral the X people you wanted? Was that pretty easy?
Yeah, this was also a cast that the cast actually got settled decently long ago, and I presented the cast in such a way that John and Jordan and everyone was kind of like, yeah, that's your cast. And it was like some of those characters did other things, like Celine showed up in Excalibur and Captain America, and those characters in Monet, characters have showed up in other places, but we've known for a long time that was the cast. Madrox is one of my all-time favorites. I'm really excited for issue 3. Because it's being drawn by Val DeLandro, who from Bitch Planet is incredible. And also it's the Madrox focused issue where we learn about his process and his change and what he's been up to and why he's so focused on work since Empire X-Men, where he seemed to just kind of figure out he was useful. And then now we've seen him a few months later and he seems to have kind of gone a little mad science. Yeah, I'm really excited about that story. Jamie's story is very much there's a heart thread through the book. That's the Madrox story. So he'll always be a favorite of mine. And
that's excellent. Go on.
I love Matt's Multiple Man series too. I reread it in preparation for the book, and it was such a treat. It's such a fun book.
Oh yeah, God, I got to tell you, it's great to hear that Val's coming on your book as well, DeLandro. One of my favorite people in comics that, again, does so much X work that it's like, oh man. And I know, Tini, I feel this about you as well in terms of I'm thrilled that you guys are doing this, and I know that it's selling really well. And it's always the X-Men. I always have to come at it in small bites and really kind of focus in on some of these peripheral series. And I don't mean that in a negative way, but as opposed to the main story, I find more fun reading stuff like Madrox Multiple Man story and things like X-Corp.
Honestly, John, as a reader, I'm usually the same way. This era, I read everything. 1, because it's my job, and 2, because I'm really weirdly in love with Krakoa and the story we're building. So and I also genuinely love the work of everyone I'm working with. There is no one in the Slack who, when they say, okay, my issue's done, here it is, who I don't immediately go, ooh, I want to read it. They're some of my favorite books right now. And the fact that I get to write 1 or 2 of them is huge to me. But I'm also in the past, I have been the same way. In the past, if I was going to pull an X book, it was almost always X Factor. I wasn't a mainline. I've never in my life pulled Uncanny. I've gone back and read tons of it. And I read all of, New X-Men in trade, but I've never pulled a main X book. If I'm going to put an X book on my pull list, it's usually a multiple man book, a side character book or a solo book, or it's X Factor.
Sure. Okay, that's good to hear. All right, then I feel a little better. But
I also love it. Excalibur too is another one I love. I have
you had a great run on it.
Yeah, and it wasn't, it wasn't my favorite Excalibur stuff came out when I was a baby. So I've never pulled Excalibur either, but if I wasn't writing it now, I'm sure it would be on my pull list because, like I said, I wouldn't write it if I didn't think I could sell it.
I understand.
I'm writing again, it is an example of me writing a book I love and would love if I was reading.
All right, well, tell me what's going on in Excalibur.
Well, the big thing that we're all doing is going to the Hellfire Gala. And what's going to happen at the Hellfire Gala in Excalibur is something pretty big that is going to shift things pretty drastically for Excalibur going forward. And from there, we'll start to see what comes out from there. I can't tell you. But definitely if you're, looking, or maybe if you picked up Ten of Swords and you're like, oh, I haven't read Excalibur since I had Ten of Swords. But I'm curious, pick up a Hellfire Gala issue and catch up from there, and you'll be in a good place.
Okay.
To enjoy it going forward while you get caught up on the trades. But yeah, if you were a Ten of Swords reader and you're okay, after Ten of Swords, it was kind of this Psylocke plot, and now I want to hop on with the Hellfire Gala, and we'll take you with us, and we're about to get wild, so it's gonna be
all
fun.
right. Good to hear.
But yeah, you guys might have seen, I guess, Richter was on the cover of the Hellfire Gala issue.
That's excellent. I also, regarding X-Corp, like you said, it's going to be fun to see how the other business, empire people of Marvel really do react to X-Corp. I mean, Stark Industries, obviously. And why am I blanking? I don't know. Is Wilson Fisk always has his fingers in a lot of pies? I don't know.
If
part of your plans.
Dario Agger, there's the Stromwinds over in Chip's Daredevil book. There are so many. There's
Sure.
Martian Pharmaceuticals in Spider-Woman. There's Roxxon. This is a part of the Marvel universe I love, and I've always got my finger on the pulse of it. And the thing that X-Corp, has presented so far that it freaks everyone out is renewability. Their resources are not finite, and everyone hates that because it destabilizes the market. And it's not their fault. They're the best, man. Simply superior.
Well, that's the great thing, is the idea too that beyond powers that they could be superior in the business world as well. And I think that's and I mean that is the core of the X-Men. Their very existence destabilizes the norm. So let's see them do that in the business world. That idea intrigued me. And that's why when I saw the pitch for X-Corp and the cover and everything, and the fact that you were writing it, I'm like, oh, this is going to be good. So I'm really seriously, Bud, you have been killing it since we talked, and I'm so proud of you. And really, I mean, it's great. It's great, man. No, and I'm really glad that you're getting the opportunities that you are at Marvel. I think that's wonderful.
It's a blast, man. Like I said, it really held me together over this past year. I mean, between that and watching movies with my husband and going roller skating, that's what kept me from losing my mind. But it's been great to do it this year, and I'm excited to keep doing it. I've still got lots of X-Men plans going forward for the next year. I was just on the phone with those guys for 3 hours today. We were all planning out years of stories. We're having a great time.
That's fantastic. All right, Deion's got another comment here. Seeing Jumbo Carnation doing a cameo in X-Corp, I'm intrigued with how mutant culture will be monetized going forward. A soft mutant war, if you will. Sure, absolutely.
Yeah. God, there's so many things I want to say to that, but 10 of them are spoilers. I love where your head is at. Absolutely. I think one of the things that's really cool is one thing that we're going to see is something that X-Corp is doing is they're not just it's not just mutants selling the drugs, and anyone selling the drugs would be doing it the same way. We're going to start seeing that part of what mutants are selling is the things that they can make and do that nobody else can, and the things that they can create in a forward-thinking way that human culture simply doesn't even know. It's the thing you really want to do in business, right? You want to sell someone something they don't even know they need yet, something they've never even thought of. And X-Corp can do that. They have the power to do super science, easily. And we've never really seen we have seen, we see their characters like Forge, that's always been their thing, but we haven't really seen a lot of mutants being hey, let's, everyone else has a lemonade stand. We can make psychic lemonade that'll blow your mind and charge double for it. And the psychic lemonade doesn't run out. And we don't need to, oppress anyone else to get it. We don't need to, pay all the worker bees $1 so that Angel can get $1 million. They don't need to do that. Mutants just don't got to work that way. And it's a huge, huge advantage. And everyone hates them for that.
Well, I was going to say, and a threat to the way everybody else does business on the business side. And of course, I would assume there's also, is there or will there be a consumer fear in the same way that there is a mutant fear in general of their existence?
I mean, it's you said it.
Okay, yeah. I mean, well, and again, we're living that world right now. Sadly, anti-vaxxers and those that certainly, are, suspect about pharmaceuticals in general, and that kind of culture.
People that don't trust mutants, people that just are scared of mutants, and so why would they trust not just mutant drugs but any mutant product?
Sure. Very cool. That's awesome. Okay, now Zombie Jack, don't worry. I'm happy to cater to you now. He's like, did I miss the Ten of Swords talk? It was my favorite Marvel event in years.
Oh my God, thank you so much. It was
Absolutely.
one of the favorite things I've ever been part of in my life.
Let's get into it. Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
so yeah, I mean, again, like, how did that feel in terms of your role in an event like that? I mean, and writing that kind of thing.
Well, the event kind of came out of, us all sitting around a table and kind of thinking about, we had been in a phase where we were like, let's start thinking about things that might be an event. Let's do an event. Not really, because we don't think of it that way, but like
big story.
I wouldn't say, a big story. There we go. Not event, but like we're not thinking of it like, but because then like here's the thing, like I'm not saying that like we're not saying that we don't have to listen to the whims of the market and all that, but like the truth is like we are very, very story first in the X-Men office, and we've been very, very lucky to do that. So I mean, a lot of what we do comes from writers' room style, us sitting around and chatting, and we'd been thinking about that, and basically Jonathan and I had been talking about how we realized we were both kind of telling this apocalypse story and where we wanted it to go, and this was we all started talking about this pretty early.
Okay.
But yeah, and Jonathan was kind of like, well, I think we should do this together, Tini. Like, I think you should be part of this event. We should co-write it. And I was like, yeah. And I was in from the go. I love fantasy. Like, I love a certain kind of like historically grounded, or at least feel like really human feeling kind of fantasy. And while definitely Excalibur is not low fantasy, it's not the low fantasy I typically read, it is kind of like still has that very human element, because it features the X-Men, and like while they're not human, we relate to them. We are humans, and we relate to the X-Men, and we love them, and we're used to seeing them in fantastic situations. So to take that love of the X-Men that we have and to put it in a pure fantasy setting, and to really crank up what I love about the classic, like, Claremont Davis, Alan Moore and Alan Davis, Excalibur, Otherworld, those Marvel's Daredevils issues, all that Captain Britain stuff. Like, what I love so much about that, and just crank it. And it's been a blast. So I was really excited and really gunning for us to do a fantasy flavored event, because it was something new. And, I was like, look, at the very least, like, we're going to get a lot of covers of characters holding swords and looking like badasses, right? Like, there's a win here, no matter who you are. And so I'd really been pushing for a fantasy themed event, and we all were kind of into it. And then, Jonathan and I had this story at the heart of it, and we co-wrote it, and like, Jonathan and I are like both the sort of writers where like we get on the phone or we get in person or on Zoom or whatever, and we talk, and then we're like, okay, dude, bye. And then like we go do our thing, and then we like send it to each other and are like, tell me what you think.
Sure.
But like, we're pretty, like, we're not co-writers in the sense that we're like, bouncing every line off each other. We're very like, we get in the same room, we plot the story together, and then I certainly love his writing, and he says very kind things about mine. So I like to think that we just like trust each other and even like each other's story impulses. So it's like, once we share the idea of the beats, I think we both like the way we complement each other. And so what we end up doing separately and bringing together, and then, finessing so that it all lines up and sounds like one song. It's just great. It's a really fun co-writing process, because like, I really like getting up in my own head and working, and so does he. So it's fun to like, connect kind of intensely on that, and then go off and then come back and like seeing, the tale change in the telling of it, and bouncing off that and reflecting off that is great.
That's great. I don't know why. I suppose because Hickman has such a unique voice that I never thought of him, not in a negative way, but I just never thought of him as a collaborative writer, because I've been used to hearing both from other Marvel writers and just hearing John's own ideas, both on the record and off the record, that it's like, John's like doing algebra and everybody else is trying to figure out fractions or whatever. And he's just got that weird, unique voice or unique point of view.
Yeah, he's got a big, huge, enormous brain. Yeah.
Yeah, but it really is self-evident that what's going on in the X office ever since, with Jonathan's lead idea, for a lack of a better description, that everyone is really kind of, again, finding their own voices within that and making these incredible books. And obviously it sounds like with Ten of Swords, it was a real easy collaboration. So that's great.
I mean, oh my God, that part was easy. And then seeing all the amazing things that everyone wrote for their stuff was easy, but there was an enormous amount of coordination that had to happen. There were spreadsheets on spreadsheets of this and that.
I believe it.
Tarot cards and swords and this and that and the other and all the data pages. Oh my God, I wrote so many data pages. I realized at one point that I was like, oh my gosh, I wrote 4 issues for the tie-in, 13, 14, 15, and I wrote Ten of Swords too. And then, Jonathan and I kind of co-wrote the other ones, and then I had my eyes on all the other issues. I was like, well, was that tiring? And then I realized also that because of all the data pages, I wrote something like 40 pages of prose and was like, oh, that was also a lot of work. Yeah, so it was a massive amount of coordination, but it worked because one, the X Slack is there and we're always chatting together, and two, I don't know, man, the pandemic was going on. Everything was in a weird place, and we were just the world was scary. There was sometimes that feeling of what if these are the last comics we ever make? I mean, who knows what was going to go on, right? I feel like we were just scared, and putting this story together just stuck all of us together. And I'm never going to be able to read it and not remember lockdown,
I'm hip. Oh, good Lord. I totally relate to that. And I really, believe me, that these last, 14 months or whatever have really been their own experience. So I believe me, yeah. I understand that. Again, and it's funny to hear two things. One, how much of your data has made it into the books, because I love the little bits of business when we see what looks like, a spreadsheet or a data sheet. I was telling Zdarsky and Terry Dodson with their X-Men FF miniseries, I love the little, kind of moments where you really saw Reed's work and what was going on there. And I wonder two things. One, how much of that gets incorporated in the trades or within the actual monthly pages? And also, when you mentioned the X Slack, I really think in the future, I don't know how many secrets are in there that might still be things that are germinating, but it would really be fun if, in a later collection or in an omnibus, that there's a section that really does just kind of show the back and forth of the X Slack. So
it's so funny though, but I'm also so weird about it, right? There's that sense of things unobserved are different, and observing it changes it, right? So it's but I think you're right. If it were ever down the line and it's the lost journals, right? The lost archives, there are definitely some gems in there that will be a lot funnier in 15 years than they are now.
Understood. No, and also exactly. Well, you guys curated. I don't expect everything, but it would be again, having seen Hickman's notebooks back in the past and other things. It's I can only imagine what's going on in the X Slack and everything. And I love just saying the words X Slack and not right? X Slacks, but X.
Oh yeah, I mean, I have a notebook that I have this notebook that I write all my Marvel stuff in, and so often during our Zoom calls, it's me opening it up and holding it up to the screen to be see this doodle, see this sketch, see this map I drew. Yeah, I love I love the data pages. I think they're gorgeous. I love them. I mean, I was a Hickman fan before I was a co-writer of his. So I love East of West, and I think that that kind of material is really fascinating. I also just love. I love comics, and I also, I usually when I buy a comic, I'm especially if it's a creator-owned comic, I'm really interested in the person that's making it, right? So I love, I used to read Sex Criminals, and I loved the back matter. I loved
Absolutely.
the tips and stuff. They were so funny. And when I did Euthanauts with Nick Robles, I really wanted to do something like that. So we interviewed different death professionals for every issue of the book. In the back of the book, there's an interview with one person is a headstone designer, one person is a mortician, one person is an orderly in a hospital who is frequently transporting bodies to the morgue, just people that worked like in and around death. And it was just a chance to do, what used to be letter columns, what you could just do ads, you could just do letters to people. But I like when it's curated. I loved Scott Snyder's book Witches. It was people would write in their like scariest things that had ever happened to them,
Yeah.
And like it was a blast. Like on my lunch break, I'd get to read a good comic, and then I'd get to read like funny sex tips or horror stories or whatever. Like I love that stuff. So to me, I'll do the thing a lot where like I'll be reading an X-Men comic really fast, or any of the X books, and at the end I'll be like, whoa, and then I'll go and I'll be like, well, now I'm going to go read the data page in more detail and get the Easter eggs. Or like I love when I read, this happens, we do this all the time, but I still sometimes get like, I see it and I get so excited when like one book is referenced in another, and like characters are like doing things behind the scenes, or like I love that stuff. And it's a way to include characters that you may not have page space for, but you're like, hey, I know that Dr. Reyes would be the person to give this diagnosis, even though Dr. Reyes isn't part of my cast. I want her to say this, or like, as a writer, they're incredible. Like sometimes you just have some heavy exposition that you're like, I don't want to bore people with 2 pages of talking heads. I don't want to make my artists do this. Here's the map. This is where they are. Artists, let's go. Let's get into the story. Snap, snap. We got 20 pages. Let's move.
No, you're right about that. But it adds another layer of realism. And it's something I agree. In fact, I'm going to put it back up. I think Jimmy said, or no, pardon me, Chaos and Comics. Yeah, let the cryberries babies cry. I completely agree. I just think it makes a more richer experience. And it immerses you more in the story when you've got the data pages. I think honestly that, and like you said, the back matter, I think I guess Fraction and Ellis were really the first to really do that 15 years ago or so when they started putting back matter in their image books and stuff. But I'm so glad that a lot of the books, both DC and Marvel, but also creator owned books, kind of took the baton and ran with it, because I just think it just makes for a richer storytelling experience.
I think it's a real treat. I love playing with it. I love breaking the form of it. If you're reading Excalibur, we've had this ongoing thing where we've seen pages from the Grimoire of Apocalypse, which was like his magical research, and now after Ten of Swords that belongs to Richter now, and you've seen like Richter has scribbled over Apocalypse pages, and now you've started to see pages that are like, okay, it's from the Grimoire of Richter. He started his own book. You see him fail thing so it's like this ongoing story that is a part of the story. It is through just reading those pages, you read Apocalypse's research, everything he's tried to do, everything he succeeded and failed at, what he's found out, and then where his research stops and Richter's picks up. Like you can read that story. There aren't a lot of panels about it, but it's there in those pages, and like that's a really cool, fun thing to play with.
Understood. And yet I agree, Chaos and Comics, it wouldn't feel like a Hickman book if there wasn't graphic design elements in there. I agree with that. Here, a shout out for Euthanauts from Chaos and Comics as well. So
thank you.
One of your early books that I would love to read, and right now, forgive me, was it The Experts, your Cold War story?
The Skeptics,
excuse me.
The Skeptics,
I want to read that, because I'm anytime it's a Cold War story, I'm always there. I love that.
I can dig up some PDFs for you, buddy.
Oh, thank you. That'd be
I think I can do that for you.
Lovely. I'd love to read that.
I have to dig them up.
That's all right, buddy. That's
book in a while, but I'll send you some.
No, it's all good. Thank you. That's very nice. Thank you, buddy. That would be terrific. So, well, and again, I mean, I'm always so bummed that all of you, but Shelley in particular, Shelley Bond with Black Crown, that you guys didn't get a chance to do more. And I loved, of course, Assassinistas, the book you got to do with Gilbert Hernandez and everything.
Yeah.
And,
I mean, we got to do some great books. The industry is fickle. But it was, had such a good time making those books. I adore Shelley. She's still putting out great things on Kickstarter with her press she's doing with her husband Philip, and like
Yeah.
I back every single book. Like I think she's great. I think she's got a sensibility like no one else, and I am so proud of the books that I made with her, Assassinistas and Mutants.
Yes.
And you know, I won't say anything else other than that. Both of those books are things I still talk about with people frequently. In some form or another, it is, you know, not the end of either. Maybe not in comics, but who knows?
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
cool.
They're both books that are still loved by a lot of people and get really positive attention, and hopefully, we'll just continue to.
That's great. In general, are you thinking about beyond comics, writing novels or other things?
I've entered the world of wanting to be a novelist because I've been locked down for 14 months and read a ton of novels and been like, oh God, I love reading novels, and I love novels as a form. I've written some prose recently. I was in Razor Blades magazine, which is a really cool horror magazine that's being put together by James Tynion, who writes Batman, and Steve Fox, who's another incredible writer and editor. They put together a magazine called Razor Blades that's horror comics and horror stories, and you can read it. You can get a free PDF, and then they do like small batch prints of it, and it's like gorgeously printed and everything. But yeah, I got to write a prose story in that recently, so that was kind of what I called a millennial horror story.
Cool.
So yeah, I love writing prose again though, and I've been having a lot of fun writing prose, so there's definitely some more prose for me in the future in a big way.
That's very cool.
I love it. Back to it.
This is Pam Bravo. I love how Rick scratched Apocalypse's name and wrote his name in. Yes, the grimoire. It gives me what?
Gives me being cut your X from the photo, but keeping the photo energy. I totally love that.
Thank you for reading for me. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. It's like this is a really good picture of me. I'm not going to get rid of it, but yeah, totally. Yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad people appreciate that. I love Richter's moody little notes. No, he may not always be the kind of guy to talk about his problems, but he will write passive aggressive notes to himself.
No, that's truly that's great. That's rewriting a tome or whatever. It's almost it's like really like going in the King James Bible and going bullshit. Let me
right, yeah.
It should go this way. The story should go this way.
Exactly. Nice terrific. Try, buddy.
That's awesome. Are you going to get more? And again, without spoiling, and maybe do you have time? I loved your Captain America story. Will you get more opportunities to write some of the bigger guns? I mean, don't get me wrong, because again, what's happening with the X books, that's its own little piece of artillery.
Oh, sure. So. I love Krakoa. I love it here. Yeah, I have some exciting things I'm thinking about right now. I'm in a really good place with Marvel right now, where it's like, I've worked with these people for a couple of years now. I've done a couple books. We've got some trust in each other. I've got some tenure, so I can kind of be like, hey, when I think about characters I want to write and stories I want to tell, I'm kind of in a place where I can be like, hey, go to that editor and be like, I'm thinking around this character, like, what's open? What do we got? Where are they right now? So it's nice because I can both, get approached for things, but also I'm in a place where I can be like, this is who I want to write. And there are definitely some things I have in the works in the back of my mind right now, and some pitches I'm working on and stuff where I'm figuring out, the best timing for things. But yeah, there's one in particular that I'm working on right now that, I've got my fingers crossed for, and it'll be really exciting. So,
atta girl. That's excellent. No, I'm hip. And yeah, when you're ready to talk about it, you'll come back. Christopher wants to know how you managed to keep Excalibur the most consistent art team in the line. Marcus Toe has done the art for nearly every issue so far. Sure.
Oh, that's a fantastic question. May I rephrase it for you? How does Marcus Toe manage to keep Excalibur the most consistent art team in the line with Tini Howard, who is not always scripting on time? Truthfully, Marcus is incredible. He is one of the fastest and tightest artists in the industry. He routinely blows my mind, and he just gets better and better and better. Like, I just looked at the full art for issue 22, and I was just like, my God, Marcus, like, you just get better and better. Yeah, that's all Marcus. He is incredible guy to work with, incredible artist, fast, professional, tight, good, perfect, the best. Love Marcus. Yeah, I'm super lucky. I've never in my life gotten to make this many comics with the same artist, and it's really something. It's
That's
like
wonderful.
I feel like writing scripts for him now is like shorthand.
That's great. No, and honestly, you're right. Like you said, I mean, it is rare that you get to, work with somebody consistently beyond 12 issues or whatever. Yeah. So that's fantastic. Henry says a nice comment and says you're the best Magdalena writer, which is lovely.
Oh, Henry. Me and my boy Ryan Katie. Absolutely. Yeah, we loved writing Magdalena. That was so much fun. I'm always here for a dirtbag girl and her grizzled older lady mentor. So
and Jimmy, and I agree with this. I'd love to see you write Jonah Hex. That would be cool. It would slap hard.
It would slap hard. That would be a blast, right? I mean, you know me. I love weird stuff. I love like Weird West stuff.
Me too.
Yeah. I mean, I was just saying how much I love East of West. It's one of my favorite comics because I'm like, I love a weird Western, like more than anything.
Totally. God, you can't see it on my wall right now, but it's on this wall, or that wall. I've got a Tony DeZuniga Jonah Hex.
Wow.
That I got from him about 10 years ago. And it's really one of my favorite pieces of art commission that I've gotten over the years. So no, I'm totally with you on Weird West. I keep and again, I don't feel bad about saying it because I'll probably never write it, but I always envision I would love to see a Hank Williams Lefty Frizzell, if you know Lefty Frizzell from ancient country music from the 50s kind of thing, that they would be together like on a tour in the 50s hitting the honky tonks and just, dealing with werewolves and vampires and just weird, shit happening as they're on their tour.
Hank goes to play at the bar from dusk till dawn.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
So that that's the comic I would like to read. So yeah, and and just in those ridiculous Porter Wagner kind of loud cowboy suits that the Western country singers would wear.
Yes, that's fantastic.
A lot of friends.
I love like. Thanks to my husband, I love like classic like country music. And
do you? Because
we love like Johnny Cash and Conway Twitty in this house, and
Jason Aaron would always like school me on country music. And finally, did you guys watch the Ken Burns country music?
No,
history?
We've really been waiting to. Yeah,
it's really, and also being an old radio guy, it really is the story of radio. As much as it is the music itself, because all these little stations would pop up all around the country and stuff. And, back then, literally the country performers would come and, like, Brother, We're Out There. They
exactly, yeah.
I love that stuff. And it's exceptional. It's really, really great.
That's super cool. We're big Ken Burns fans in this house too. We're big documentary people. I'll watch anything so long as it's a well-made documentary about it. I'm interested in any topic all of a sudden. Like,
oh yeah, it's funny. And Henry agrees. He's like, the Ken Burns doc is amazing. I agree with that. And then also, I was literally yesterday and today just combing around. Thank God for YouTube, because there's so many orphaned documentaries that never see the light of day after they're first aired. And back in that
too.
What's that?
There's so many songs that are like songs from like a soundtrack in the 90s I liked, and I can't find them to buy anywhere. If I want to listen to them, it's some little YouTube rip, but I'm like, all right.
Now, you were probably a little kid when this came out, but back in 95 when PBS and WGBH made that rock and roll documentary, and oh my God, I love that thing. And I'm like, and I'm sure it's the fact that there are so many songs, and to get the rights for everything to present in a DVD or even streaming is probably next to impossible. And there's like, I think it was 9 or 10 episodes, and I found like 5 of them on YouTube in the last couple of days. And I'm even texting friends going, anybody got this? Anybody, I'm like, anybody even pirated? And I hate to say it, but I'm like,
Does
I
anyone know a
really miss.
guy with a
It was
trench
so well
coat?
made. Yeah, I'm like, I
A
want to see
trench
those
coat full of
episodes again,
DVDs.
man. It's been almost 30 years. I want to see that stuff
Sure.
again.
Oh yeah. The worst is when you think of something and you can't like remember what it was, and you're doing that thing where you're Googling like the little bits you can remember to be like, what was that show? Oh, it was so good.
Totally. Too much, buddy. Well, all right. So Excalibur. I mean, and obviously now X-Corp. What else? What else is coming up?
Well, I co-write. I help out on the Vampire the Masquerade.
Oh, by the
comics from
way, and
Fall.
yeah, someone
Yeah,
mentioned that and how much they love that. So,
oh, thank you, and I'll totally pass that on to my husband Blake Howard, who is the main writer on the backstories, the Anarch Tales ones. He does such a
awesome.
kick-ass job. He does such a kick-ass job. Like like I God, jealously, I wish he needed more of my help, but he doesn't.
That's
he
great.
kills it. We're both long time Vampire the Masquerade fans. And we love V5, and it was just super cool to be involved. We love working with Tim Seeley. Our artist is, Tim's an old friend of mine.
Oh yeah.
Our artist is Nathan Gooden, who's just incredible. And it's been great. I've been watching. Nathan and Blake and I worked together for, months. And I was telling Blake just the other day, I was like, you and Nathan are starting to get that synergy where like, I can tell that like he's pulling it right out of your head. And like, you guys are just like shorthanding really cool stuff. Really loving that. Loving to get a chance to work with him. And he also writes like the game rules, which is fun and geeky for me because I don't know the first thing about writing game rules, but I love to play the games. So it's been really cool to be like for him and I to be a like real part of something that we've both loved for such a long time. And it's something that we've done together as a couple. Like we've gone to vampire LARPs and we've played in games, and we've this has always been something we love. I mean, our living room is full of, Dracula posters. Like we love this stuff. So working and getting to work with him, getting to work with Blake. He's my husband. He's my best friend. So
that's fantastic. Absolutely.
That's the best part of it. Right. But it's been really cool, and people seem to love it, and I can't blame them because, Tim and Blake's writing is so great, and the Devmalia and Nathan's art is so great. I mean, I am just like, it's another one of those things where it's like, I know I'm working on this, but I'm not working on every part of it. And I'm such a super fan that it's like, it's just constantly exciting to be in the room. And there's so much cool stuff coming there too, on that front. There is big stuff on the way.
Good to know. Absolutely. Wow, that's amazing. So who's your favorite film Dracula?
I mean, I don't know. If I say Gary Oldman, is everyone going to get mad? No, I mean, Christopher Lee is the legend, right? I really love like the old Hammer horror movies.
Oh, yeah.
I have to say, but I have more of a crush on Peter Cushing Van Helsing than on Christopher Lee Dracula. So
very cool.
Definitely not Dracula from Blade Trinity. That's a good answer, right? That's that's the worst Dracula. I mean, I love Blade Trinity in a weird, twisted way, but definitely the worst cinematic Dracula would be.
I'm with you. I think it was just seeing Hannibal King on film made me happy. And I really liked that Ryan Reynolds actually was a very good Hannibal King.
He was great, yeah. And Parker Posey is fantastic in that movie.
I totally forgot about it. Wow, yeah. I totally forgot about Parker Posey.
Natasha Lyonne, Patton Oswalt, Triple H. Like, that movie is bananas. I talk about it every chance I get.
I got to rewatch that. You're so right. I saw that in the theater, and I liked it enough, but it felt like a third film. And like you said, Dracula was just, whatever. And especially coming off the other two films, where Brad Dourif and I can't even remember who else, in the second film.
What's his name? Hellboy is in the second one.
Ron Perlman.
Yeah, Ron Perlman. Well, we actually my husband and I just watched all three of the Blade movies like semi-recently. Like when I started working on Strike Force, we were like, we should rewatch all the Blade movies.
Cool.
So we did. And I was like, all of these movies hold up in different ways, but they are three completely different movies. Like they don't feel like a trilogy at all.
No.
I like the first one is, fine. It's an origin story. The second one is like a really cool, really weird Guillermo del Toro action horror movie.
Yes.
And the third one has an amazing cast.
Yeah. And I think I would have rather watched what was proposed to be the third movie, where the whole world are vampires and like Blade's the one good one and the one exception, and now the entire world is after him. And I
Yeah.
thought that, you know, it was almost like an I Am Legend kind of riff
That's not really what
within
it
the
was.
Blade world.
Yeah.
What's that?
And that's not really what it turned out to be.
No,
Yeah.
it became very different, and unfortunately, yeah, again with a great cast on there and interesting things in it. But yeah, I don't know, but I am curious to watch it again now that you talk about it. So
yeah, it's definitely worth it when you're in those moods where you're like, I just want to put on something stupid. I don't want to think too much, and I'm okay with just seeing like some gore and like you ever just like this is, I don't know, if you're a bad movie watcher, it's like you see like it is underrated. Thank you. I saw in the comments. The thing where you're just like, sometimes you want to watch a movie where like when someone's head gets cut off, you're like, yeah,
sure.
like,
oh no, absolutely,
is perfect for that. It's like it's watchable if you just want to like sit down with a beer or whatever and like watch a stupid movie.
No, I think Old School is right, and that's very funny that you point that out. Old School, I agree with you.
It's not on the level of like, you know, because it doesn't have Guillermo del Toro, right?
Right.
But I did find out actually, if you watch, I think it's the World of Darkness documentary about like Vampire the Masquerade and all that. They talk about how they went back and Guillermo del Toro went back and found like the artists from World of Darkness and kind of like made sure to credit them because he felt like so much of the first movie had been like really ripped off from their art without crediting them. All these people like Tim Bradstreet and these like classic like goth fantasy artists, like they felt like that had been ripped off. So like Guillermo del Toro, when he signed on for Blade 2, was like, I'm gonna make sure these guys get their due because this movie it would not exist visually the way it does without Tim Bradstreet's art. It was like very, very inspired.
You know, it's so funny. Tim and I, we were at school at the same time in the same town. Yeah, college. I know, and it's so great. I was at Illinois State, and he was down the street at Illinois Wesleyan, which is like literally 5 minutes away. So we went to the same comic book stores. He grew up in that area, and it's so funny. And yeah, literally like 20 years later, we're both doing what we wanted to do. And it was so great seeing his art even at that age. And, you know, everything he did for that series was so terrific. And literally like around 2000 or so, I'm in radio, he's kicking ass in comics, and I see him at a comic convention, and we're both just like, is this great? Like, we're doing what we want to do, man. How about that? It's like we won.
Fantastic. That's the best feeling, right? It's the best feeling, yeah.
Yes. Well, there you go, buddy. Exactly. And truly, I'm so glad that, unlike, you know, some of your contemporaries that really did get screwed and pencils down happened during COVID and stuff, that you were able to continue and make great stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely had some COVID losses, right? There was definitely like an issue or two of a few things, or like a mini series I was gonna do, and yeah, there were some darlings that got killed, but overall, I stayed working. We made an amazing event that I'm so proud of.
Yes.
And we stayed healthy, and we all got real close because we all didn't have any other social interaction.
Yeah, no choice, exactly.
So I mean, yeah, it was great. I'm very, very lucky that I got to keep working and make stuff I really, really love. Like make some of my favorite work I've ever done.
That's great.
During a really stressful time.
No, I get it. And absolutely, and truly, that has been the most satisfying thing to learn in the last 14 months talking to people, in that, as weird as this time has been, most of us have been able to kind of juke with the new challenges and figure out a different way to do what we like to do and are satisfied with the work. So I'm really glad to hear that from you and a lot of your contemporaries as well that I've been talking to. So that's all wonderful, man. I mean, did you have you enjoyed the Marvel television that we've been getting the last few months?
Oh yeah, I watched everything, all WandaVision and Falcon and Winter Soldier. I mean, yeah, I had fun with it. You know, it's comic book TV. It's fun as, you know, comic fans to watch and say like, who's that, and you know, who's this going to be, and you know, calling who you think various characters are going to be, like that big WandaVision reveal, which I won't say because there could be people who haven't gotten to watch it yet here, but
sure.
that big WandaVision reveal that everyone knows, like I was like from day one, I was like, that's my girl. Like I was like, I know it. But I'm like a huge Scarlet Witch fan, and so that was something I really wanted. And yeah, Falcon and Winter Soldier, I had a blast with it. It was just, it felt good, I guess, to sometimes we just all need like a water cooler thing to talk about.
Oh yeah, good Lord, yes. Absolutely.
It just felt nice to have that, and for it to feel a little bit like going to the movies. Even if it was just sitting on our couch watching an hour of it at a time, like Falcon and Winter Soldier felt a little bit like going to the movies every week. And
no question.
That was fun.
Are you, and forgive me, Tini, because if you've written Star Wars stuff in Marvel, I forgive me, I didn't realize, but okay. And are you a Star Wars person? Are you watching Bad Batch?
I'm a big Star Wars person. We're a big Star Wars house. I'm a second generation Star Wars person.
My God, that's so fantastic.
Yeah, my husband is, I would say, first generation, but more devout, as are many religions.
That's cool.
So I'm second generation, but less devout. He is first, but more. But we have been watching Bad Batch. I was like kind of semi-watching it, but he's like, no, I'm watching it. So I've been watching it too. It's fun.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, it's fun stuff. I'm really excited because we live on the West Coast now, and now things are reopening and we're vaccinated. I'm so excited to go to Galaxy's Edge finally. I haven't gotten to go. I want to go do the whole thing, and I haven't been I'm not like a huge theme park person. So like the last time I went to a theme park was going to like Busch Gardens with some friends when I was like in my 20s, right? But I'm like I think I might have to like wear waterproof mascara because I might cry. Like the girl that gets my hair said she cried when Chewbacca hugged her.
Aww.
Like she was cutting my hair and she was like, "Oh, when Chewbacca hugs you, it triggers something in you. You cry." And I was like, "Yeah, sure. I totally get that."
I probably would cry.
But yeah, I'm very excited to make a pilgrimage to Galaxy's Edge.
That's excellent. Are you a Star Trek person?
Kinda. I was raised watching a lot of TNG. But like in my older age, I've kind of gone back and been like, I do like some of this. We liked the first season of Discovery. I liked better than the other seasons, but I thought the first season was a lot of fun. And we've jumped around a lot. Like my husband and Blake, the aforementioned Blake, who obviously writes Vampire.
Please, it's all right.
Yeah. He's really good at being like, he's like the kind of guy where he'll prepare like a charcuterie plate of television where he's like, okay, I wanted to watch some Star Trek tonight. So I picked an original series episode, a TNG episode, a Deep Space Nine episode, and like we'll be like, or like a Voyager episode, and we'll be like, okay. But we definitely had a Star Trek phase in lockdown where we were like watching a lot of TNG and watching a lot of the original series. Cool. I got really into the original series for a while. I don't know why. I was just like really into the like tight like TV purity of it, and like the way the stories were just like, they felt like, magazine sci-fi stories. And I grew up reading a ton of like magazine sci-fi stories, like those collected paperbacks of like Arthur C. Clarke and Isaac Asimov and Ray Bradbury and all those. Like I grew up, Philip K. Dick, I grew up reading all of those. And so I love classic Star Trek because it feels a lot like that, where it's like, what is the sci-fi problem of the episode? And we must solve it. But I heard a lot of people were into like, comfort TV during the pandemic. A lot of my friends were watching like Columbo and Murder, She Wrote. Like I think a lot of us just wanted to go back, and the world felt kind of cynical, and we just wanted some like classic, non-cynical, no postmodern, just modern TV.
No, I get it. Honestly, it's the lack of the science fiction questions that frustrate me about new Star Trek. Yeah. And it's like, I'm sorry, I think that's missing. And it does. It gets it. So I won't deny. I mean, I don't think I'm a hater, because every week I truly do try to get into like, all right, maybe I'll like this episode. Maybe I'll like what they're doing this week. And unfortunately, a lot of times it's more than that, where I'm like, there's very little sci-fi in modern Star Trek. And it's like, I miss that, because that's what I loved about pretty much all the iterations going back to the classic series. And of course, like you said, it felt like magazine sci-fi. Well, that's because they were literally going to these people that were writing magazine sci-fi.
Exactly. And being like, can you write us an episode of TV? Yeah. And that's part of why I love it. And like, shoot, like, I love Next Generation. Like, you don't have to tell me, like, I write a book about people sitting in a room talking about deals. And like the idea of people sitting in a room in their suits figuring out problems, like,
Yes.
you know, I'm like, there's nothing better to me than like, you know, than that. Like, I grew up on that, like that kind of that like that very 90s office building, late 80s, like mauve interior of the Enterprise.
Yes.
That's a big part of my childhood, you know, and I love that. Like the definitely growing up on like those episodes of Star Trek and like sci-fi magazine stories formulated a lot of what became like my comic book storytelling style too, which is kind of thinking of a problem and thinking my way around it, and in a way that's interesting and like compelling and dramatic.
Sure. Did you ever get to in Vegas when they had the Star Trek experience? Because everything you described about being on the Enterprise, you get to walk through the Enterprise D,
yes.
And you're on the bridge. And I got to tell you, I appreciate what you're saying about Star Wars and Galaxy's Edge. I'm sure I would have that feeling as well. But I feel like I've already had that satisfaction walking through the bridge. And I really, you know, it's a giant group and they really are moving you quickly through it. And I was so lagging at the back, like, all right, I'm going to take baby steps because I really want to savor every moment standing on the bridge of the Enterprise. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm here. This is incredible. So
yeah, I want to like put on a big Deanna Troi wig and go sit in 10 forward. Live the experience.
Well, and the other thing too is, and I would do this a lot in the 90s and in the 2000s. I was working in sports radio, so I'd be in Vegas for big boxing matches, and I would like always plan my Sunday before going to the back to the airport to fly home. I would spend the morning or afternoon at the Vegas Hilton, go through the Star Trek experience, and have a late breakfast or lunch at Quarks because we could eat at Quarks. And I would get like blitzed on, like they had a drink called the Warp Core Breach, which is this great rum punch and everything. And I'd be like, you know, blasted out of my mind sitting at
whatever.
Quarks.
You're just going to be on a plane for a few hours. Might as well.
I'm not driving. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like, fine. Hey, how you doing?
Sleep it off. Yeah.
Exactly. Another Ractigino, please, Quark. Thank you. So, yes, I get it. Absolutely. That's hilarious. Well, there you go, bud. I appreciate it as always, talking. And,
of course. There was one really good question that I wanted to make sure we addressed before we go. It was from another question from Dion. It was about Ritesh at Comics Effects wrote about Trinary earlier this week. How do you approach writing characters of color? I just think it's a really good question.
Please.
I want to talk about it.
Sorry, I missed that. Yes, by all means.
The obvious answer is like people, because they are. But it's definitely something that, you know, I take into account, right? What I think about a lot is that everything that I feel and experience and you know, believe, like everyone is human, right? Like regardless of the things that I feel, lots of people have felt those things. I'm not so unique that things I feel and experience and think about are unique to just me. A lot of people and a lot of characters that I write have those feelings and have those thoughts too. What I don't think is my place to write about without other perspective are the struggles and the pain and the problems that are specific to those identities. So like I might feel differently about having a character like Trinary speak about her Indian heritage in a positive way with, like, you know, just by the people that I know that are from that background, or people that I might talk to and say, hey, like, not just she's Indian, that's a monolith, but like she's this age, she's from this place. Like what are things that, you know, I might know about her based on the people I know that are like her. One thing I've said before is like, I've had people, like usually people that are well-meaning, basically be like, you know, how do you write about people of color if you don't know any? And I'm like, get more friends. Like, yeah, I don't know how that's a
problem. I'm with you.
Yeah. But for some people it is, I guess. But,
well, it might be regional. You don't know. I mean, that's the thing too, whatever. You know?
Yeah. So, but I mean, I guess the thought is like, for me, everyone's a person. There's nothing about, like, what I do love to write about it with, you know, a character like Monet, for example, is like the frustration of feeling like I could just get this done if everyone would just get the hell out of my way. Like, that's something I really share with Monet. Monet is determined and often frustrated and often hamstrung by the fact that she thinks she can do everything herself. And like, these are things I share with her. These are things I put into Monet. Monet and I are both, she's not a real woman, but I am, and I can put that experience into her. But I definitely don't. The one thing I always say is like there are things that I've suffered being a woman that I feel comfortable putting into my work, and there are things I've suffered being a queer person that I feel comfortable putting into my work. And I feel like I can write about that suffering or that complication, and I can stand behind it because I can say that's my lived experience. But what I don't want to do is put characters of color through suffering because they're characters of color, because I just don't have the necessary perspective. There's nothing I gain from doing that because of their background on page that's beneficial to anyone, right? Like Monet can get her ass kicked for a ton of reasons, and I can have fun with making her lose and win and struggle and fight. But the story of like her, suffering because of anti-Muslim rhetoric is just not, I don't think it would be interesting coming from me. Like, I don't think that's a good story for me. I think the person that has that story to tell is someone who has a lot more interesting and nuanced and true things to tell. It's just like, I have a lot of stories to tell about characters of color without putting them in pain for being characters of color.
Understood. Absolutely.
But I thought that was a great question, and I didn't want people to.
No. I'm so glad that you saw that. I did not. And Old School says, I think much of the pushback people have when it comes to representation and progressivism in modern comics is due to a lack of empathy and an inability and refusal to occupy a different headspace.
I think that's a really good way of putting it, the refusal to occupy a different headspace. I think one thing I noticed is that we all read comics and we all engage with media differently. And I've noticed that, sometimes people like, they prefer their version of a character over like the realistic version of a character, because their version might have been the version they fell in love with might have been a little more streamlined for comic coolness, and then maybe another writer like, Leah Williams and I are two of the first female writers to write about Betsy Braddock. And so we gave her a lot of like interiority that to some people seemed like weird or foreign, but to Leah and I, it's like, this is always how we've read this character as women. But a lot of people were like, Betsy Braddock is Psylocke the badass ninja who doesn't care about anything. And like, that's fine. Like, everyone has their take on a character, but like sometimes when you want to do things like, for example, give Betsy struggles that I've dealt with as a woman that show her struggling as a woman, people are like, well, I don't want to see her fail. She's a badass. I don't want to be reminded that women fail. And I'm like, but we do fail. And I like being able to write about that. And that's important to me. But some people I think resist, and that is progressive. Letting women tell stories about women is progressive.
Yes.
But because of that, sometimes we want to tell stories about women suffering and failing. And some people who have really, really held these characters up as icons are like unwilling to occupy that headspace, unwilling to think about the fact that this character is in the hands of a woman who might want to say some things about women. And it's not because I'm like putting thoughts about women into the book for people to get mad at me about. It's that I'm a woman. It's my perspective. It's the same part of me. It doesn't make me different, but it does shape my views,
Sure. Absolutely, buddy. Absolutely. And also, it's the struggles that make them stronger heroes and stronger characters as well. I mean, I sometimes I think there's judgment on, and forgive me because I don't know a specific thing that you're referring to.
Oh no,
regarding Psylocke, but yeah, that like a lot of times just people make judgments on chapter 2 of a 5-chapter story, and it's like, let the writer tell the story, and then see how things come. And also, again, I think it just makes them more real because we do fail. You just in general. I mean, that's something that's just part of life.
Yeah, and one of the best things that Shelley Bond taught me is that a book doesn't exist like the week it comes out. It exists on the shelf forever. So like, if you're writing a book and people are like, I don't get it, and you're like, I know where I'm going. Like, sometimes you have to do that. Like, sometimes you just have to like log out of Twitter and like let people freak out at you and like just be like, hey, I know where this is going. And like, and ultimately in 10 years, you guys won't be tweeting about this anymore, but it will still be on the shelf with my name on it. So like, above all else, like, I have to stand behind it. I have to believe in what I'm doing. And I'm so grateful that like, I feel like I have a lot of readers who are willing to do that with me, and I'm very thankful for each and every one.
Hey, you're kicking ass. I'm so happy for you, and I'm really glad you're getting the opportunities to tell your story. So, and Jeff says he loves Excalibur. Looking forward to X-Corp taking off. Absolutely. Jeff also asked if Trinary can get a name, please.
Yeah, she should have one. Like, you're absolutely right. She should have a name, and it's something it's not the first time I've thought about it. But it's something I want to put work into, but I'm also like, maybe I'm not the right. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But I think you're right. I think that, but also I don't know. Sometimes I also feel like, there's got to be a story, right? Like, I don't just want to have her to be like, oh, by the way, I pull her name tag off, and she's like, it's this.
Right, exactly. She's Janet Vincent. Okay.
It's like, I think we should find out her name in a cool way.
So, and forgive me, because I don't know Trinary. I'm assuming she's like Triplicate Girl, where she's 3 people, obviously.
No, she is called Trinary because she is a technopath. She can talk to machines, and so she's
awesome.
Trinary in like programming basically represents the idea that like some machines are now smart enough to have an I don't know, like AI have an I don't know, because it's like what leads them to the next branch of thought is like is this a yes or no? I don't know. Okay, next branch. So Trinary is like a name that kind of represents that. That's
great.
The loose I don't know area of tech, which you can figure out if you can talk to them and speak your language. A machine might not be able to like spit out a code, but if something weird is wrong with it, but maybe it can say, I have a technovirus or something,
Hilarious. That's a great idea. I love that.
Oh, she's a Tom Taylor character from X-Men Red. She's great.
Oh, there you go. Tom.
In that. Yeah.
Goddamn. When Tom was writing Suicide Squad recently, just the new characters that he introduced just blew me away. And
I am a well-documented Nightwing fan, and I picked up 78.
Yes.
And it was great. I got 78, 79 and 80 waiting for me. I got to go read them, but
Me too,
I love Nightwing. It's blast. Tom's a blast.
Tom's a blast.
I love Injustice. I think that's such a great book. I love X-Men Red. I think Tom just writes a hell of a superhero comic.
I agree. I've been on the ride since he was writing Darth Vader comics 10 years ago or so. That's when I first became aware of him. And then, and also just a sweet guy. So,
yeah, for sure.
Jesus, So hopefully, Tini, I'm hoping that we'll see each other face to face at a convention sooner than later.
I hope.
Any plans for this year?
Vaccinated arms.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right now, I'm on the calendar for Dragon Con, hoping everyone stays vaccinated and healthy, and the con can proceed safely. I'm on the calendar there, but I'm taking it kind of slow this year for now. Just trying to feel things out. I mean, definitely there's a part of me that wants to say, yes, I want to go everywhere right now.
I know.
But the last thing I want to do is say that, and then I go to one show and get sick. And then I'm like, just kidding. But hopefully I won't, because I'm vaccinated. I think we're all going to be good.
Yeah, I'm gonna roll the dice with Terrificon in August. I'm glad to be invited back to that, and I'll be moderating panels, and we'll see how it goes. And of course, C2E2 is in my backyard, so I'll be there in December.
Yeah, that's right.
So,
that's right. They're doing everything's in weird order this year. All the big repop shows are like on new and different dates. But I mean, the last thing I did was just about the last thing I did before lockdown was C2E2. So
yeah. God, I didn't see you there, and I'm sorry I didn't. But no, believe me, I talked to everyone who was there, and last con standing, and King and I really that week. I don't know how you felt those 5 days afterwards. But there was, you get con crud, and I'm sure that's it was. But my God, King and I were on the phone with each other every day, and it's like, how do you feel? I still feel like shit. Maybe I got it. I don't know. Maybe I got it too.
We had an X retreat. We stayed an extra day or two in Chicago so we could have a day or two to work on X stuff together, because the whole team was there. And the day Jerry and I came back Tuesday through LAX, and it was the same time that they were a bunch of cases were just through Chicago to LAX, and Jerry and I were like, oh my God, they were on our plane, we're gonna die.
Yeah,
terrible. And it was so scary because we were all still figuring out what this is. I seriously was like, look, my favorite book is The Stand. I'm ready for however bad this is gonna get. I've done
not a good
reading.
Book to have in your brain while we're going through this.
It's my favorite book. I've done the reading. I'm ready for whatever comes next. Yeah. But hopefully, after a long, scary time and a lot of loss, we will have some joy again soon.
Agreed, buddy. Absolutely. Well, great seeing you. And
great seeing you, John. Thanks for having me, and thank you to everyone that asked questions and tuned in.
Fantastic questions, everybody. Well done.
Yeah.
And again, the main book we talked about, X-Corp, it's on the stands now. It's fantastic. It is well worth your time, as are any books with Tini Howard's name on them. So as always, buddy. It's my pleasure, buddy. Absolutely. And hey, in about 90 minutes, I'll be talking to Joshua Williamson about the other side of the street, and we'll talk about Infinite Frontier and DC
Josh
Comics.
and I are gonna meet in the alley and do some West Side Story.
Oh, no.
we gotta tangle in the digital lobby.
Can I name drop one last time for this episode and say that I've been kissed by Rita Moreno? How about that? Oh
my God!
EGOT winner. Better
smooched by an EGOT and a babe.
Let me tell you, and I was 17 years old, and it was a very nice thrill for young John Suntress for getting kissed by Rita Moreno. She was lovely. Yeah. She's incredibly cool. Yeah,
that's incredible.
Well, she was awesome. Tale. It's so funny. She was great. So
that's so awesome. What a wonderful tale. Go. Well, thank you, John. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, have a great night.
You too. Thank you, everybody, for watching. And I'm sorry, Tini, did you want to?
Oh, I guess I'll do my last plug. TiniHoward.com. You can sign up for my email newsletter. It's also on Substack, TiniHoward.substack.com. I send out emails every few weeks. I send out links to podcasts and stuff I do. I send out weird essays. If I'm not on Twitter much anymore, but TiniHoward.com, you can sign up for my newsletter, and that's the best way to hear from me. That's all. Just wanted to plug the newsletter.
No, I'm so glad you did, and I should join that newsletter as well. And I will lean less on Twitter contacting you and lean more on our emails back and forth.
I'll add you to the list. I know someone.
Oh, thanks, buddy. That'd be lovely.
She can add you to the list if you're willing.
That would be my pleasure. No, I want to know what's going on, and I want to know when the right time is to talk to you next. I'm on a lot of creator newsletters that way. That's terrific.
Sure, I'll add you in.
Thank you very much. All right, everybody. We reconvene in 90 minutes. Stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy.